Hey everybody, Doug A798 here. This is my second and longer and in-depth review of the 1987 Masters of the Universe film, which is based on the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe franchise. This is one of my all-time favorite films, and after watching this film 3 more times, I just had to talk about this film again. Of course, this film was released in 1987 to a negative reception and was pretty much a box office flop. I didn't grow up in the 80s, so I don't know, but people around this time it is said that the Masters of the Universe franchise was at the height of its popularity and the toy lines and the figures and all this stuff was starting to wane, so that's one of the reasons why this film didn't do so well. And of course, most of the fans, most of the critics also didn't like this film. They saw this film as a Star Wars ripoff. This film did come out in the wake of Star Wars and the Masters of the Universe franchise. Is pretty much Star Wars and Conan, a cross between Conan the Barbarian and Star Wars. So I didn't mind that. I actually like some of the Star Wars influences, and just like in Star Wars, the Masters of the Universe franchise is actually set in a galaxy far, far away, just like in Star Wars. Only He-Man, I think, is set in the present time, whereas Star Wars, the original trilogy, is set a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I didn't mind that. That's one of the reasons most critics didn't like it. Other reasons, some of the fans, of course, didn't like this film, of course, because it was different from the cartoon. When the common misconception is that this film was based exclusively on the cartoon, when this film was actually an adaptation of the entire Masters of the Universe franchise and is more based on the mini comics that came with the action figures of the characters. If you go read the Wikipedia summaries of the toy line characters of He-Man and Skeletor, they're actually somewhat similar to this film right here. That whole secret identity stuff didn't come about till the till DC produced their own version of the comics, and of course the animated series, which popularized the secret identity. So this was still a pretty awesome, underrated adaptation. Like I said, I for one saw this film in the mid 2000s. This is when I was real. This is when I got into He-Man with the 2002 series, man. And I've been a huge fan of He-Man ever since. First off, when I first heard about this film, you don't know how excited I was that there actually was a He-Man film in the 80s. I could see a He-Man film being done now, but in the 80s, you've seen the cartoons. You would need a whole lot of money to get all those characters, the fictional world of Eternia, and stuff. And this film, what I thought for what they have to work with, I thought they did. I thought Gary Goddard, the director of this film, did an awesome job. The set designs were good, both the Eternia and the New York City set designs. The costume designs were great. The sword and hand-to-hand combat skills were great. Anthony DeLongis, who was the stunt double for Frank Langella's Skeletor, and played the character Blade, was the head fight choreographer. You can see that the sword fighting and the hand-to-hand combat skills were and the gunfights, all that stuff was awesome. Man, the costume design was good. Only problem I have with the costume design is that Tila's costume. I like her costume, but I wish she would have had something more in line with the animated series, what she had in the cartoons or her toy. The dress with the I think she wears a white or yellow dress with the red boots. Yeah, with the red boots and the white dress with the red boots. I wish she would have had that look, or the look she has in the modern 2002 series with the white and green shirt, white and green dress shirt with a dress and brown boots, and a stick and a stick and staff instead of just being a normal gunfighter here. But Courtney Cox did an awesome job as Tila. John Cypher was spot on as Man at Arms, except he looked older than he really should have. And of course, the other problem I had when it came to costumes was Skeletor's costume. Skeletor's costume, Skeletor's costume was awesome. However, I would prefer him to look like his animated and comic book counterparts with the white skull, with the blue skin, the white skull, the blue loincloth, and the blue boots, or with the blue boots or shin guards, or black cape and boots, like in the New Adventures of He-Man television series from the 90s. I would have preferred him to look more like that. I did love his updated look when he transformed, when he used the cosmic key, to transform into a more powerful Skeletor. Yeah. This right here, like I said, this right here. So yeah, this right here was an awesome film. Another thing I love about this film is that for some odd reason, Mattel didn't provide much financing for this film. That's what I hear from people on the internet. They didn't provide much financing for this film, so that's another reason why this film was cheap. They couldn't stay in Eternia. They had to come to Earth. Despite coming to Earth, the film was still entertaining. It still stayed good. It still stayed good, and they still maintained that larger than life epic movie comic book feel. And this movie, while being a flop in its day, was actually a precursor to what we see today in films like Thor and Masters of the Universe. I think Thor itself, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's comics were actually a huge inspiration on this film. I read so on Wikipedia. And Gary Goddard. They didn't have enough money to film the epic final fight scene between Skeletor and He-Man, the sword fight between Skeletor and He-Man. So he paid, in order to get that completed, he paid with money out of his own pocket to get that fight scene created. That right there is dedication, man. That is dedication. That is dedication. Taking money out of your own pocket to make sure this film got completed. The epic fight scene at the end would not have got completed because of that. Would not have got completed had he not paid. That right there is dedication. This film has so much heart and so much soul, and it's really underrated. It's way better than what people give it credit for, and it still holds up today. A lot of films I've actually watched, I still watch today, but I watched in that era, do not hold up today. But this one does. This is this is my opinion, one of the greatest films, one of the greatest and most underrated films I've ever seen. Going back to the cast, Dolph Lundgren, he's not the best actor in the world, but I can't think of a better actor to play He-Man. The only other guy I can think of, the only other two guys that come to mind that could play He-Man was the guy from Flash Gordon. I keep forgetting his name. The guy from Flash Gordon, or the guy from the 1989 film The Arena, another awesome film, Paul Shatterfield. These are the guys I can think of who could play who were better actors than Lundgren, who could play He-Man. But Lundgren was awesome as He-Man. This was only his this was only his second role, so he really wasn't that good of an actor yet, but he looked the part, and he was just an awesome character. Oh man, Dolph Lundgren, pretty much growing up, was everything I wanted to be in this film. He was just an awesome character. And then you have Frank Langella, who was probably the best actor in the film, man. Frank Langella actually likes the role of Skeletor. He actually considers this one of his favorite roles ever, and Skeletor was so scary, intimidating, badass, and just awesome. Frank Langella did an awesome job as Skeletor. When Skeletor was powering up, that speech was epic, and all the lines Skeletor has are epic and are terrifying. And like I said, going back to being scary, when Skeletor vaporized Karg for failure, man, that scene was scary. I was actually scared for Blade Beastman and Sauron. Sauron. The woman playing Evil Lynn did a good job. Anthony the longest. I loved his character Blade. I loved his character Blade. He was a good henchman. He was a good henchman. He was intimidating, and he was a badass swordsman. He was a badass swordsman. Sauron was awesome too. I love the makeup and costume of Sauron. Voice was awesome too. And Beastman, he doesn't. The actor, well, he doesn't say much. He just growls in this film. Another departure from the source material. But I love his character design. He looks like a samurai. He looks like a anthropomorphic samurai, and yeah, an anthropomorphic samurai, he looks like the Beastman from the television series, only he has samurai armor on. So yeah, Beastman was awesome too. Beastman was awesome too. Like I said, he doesn't say anything, but he was awesome and intimidating. He actually doesn't talk in this film. Probably the only other disappointment I have in the in this film was that Beastman doesn't talk. And while it would have been cool to see other masters of evil like Trapjaw, Triclops, I'm kind of glad that they didn't. I'm glad I like what they did. They used characters like Sauron and Card because they could kill these characters off and introduce familiar characters later in a sequel if this film had been successful, but it wasn't. The human characters, the cop, what were their names? I can pull it up. What were their names? The human characters. Yeah, Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox portrays Julia Winston. Courtney Cox portrays Julia Winston. She was a great character. She was a great character. Like I said, the on Earth stuff. I actually enjoyed the on Earth stuff. There was lots of humor, especially there was one scary and funny scene where the bad guys, Blade, Beastman, and Sauron, entered the gym and they beat the crap out of a guy named Carl. That scene was hilarious and scary. I can imagine how Carl must have felt when he saw these three bad guys coming for him, man. Coming for him. James Tolkien, he was good as Detective Lubrick. Chelsea Fields, that's who portrays Tila. I get her confused with Courtney Cox. Like I said, she was awesome as Tila. I just wish Tila looked more like the cartoon. More like the cartoon. John Cipher was awesome as Man-at-Arms. Man-at-Arms was almost like the '80s version of Man-at-Arms, except he looks older than he should be, and his suit is blue instead of yellow, instead of orange and green. And Wildor was cool too. He was a good replacement for Oracle. I preferred Oracle, but they couldn't do that. They couldn't have Oracle in the film because Oracle doesn't have legs, and having Oracle float throughout the whole film would have cost a lot of money. They didn't have the money for that, so I'm cool with that. And the sorceress Christina Pickles, she was good. Meg Foster was awesome as Tila. I mean, not Tila, but Evil Lynn. So yeah, like I said, and Robert Duncan McNeil was awesome as Kevin Corrigan, the other human ally. So yeah, like I said, man, just an awesome film, and like I said, lots of exciting action, man. Lots of exciting action in this film. Dolph Lundgren, he doesn't really get to use his martial arts skills. He mostly fights with a sword. And gun. Even though there was one cool scene where he picked up Sauron and threw him, and I think there was another scene of beginning where he was manhandling some soldiers by punching and just kicking them. Hit an awesome karate kick, and like I said, I love his epic showdown at the end with Skeletor. So like I said, an awesome film. I like the music, and I love the music. The theme song reminds me of the Superman Reminds me of the Superman films. Reminds me of the Superman films. I would prefer the theme music from the 80s and 90s cartoon, but I prefer that theme music more. That dun 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 dun. I prefer that theme, but this theme right here was pretty. The theme right here was pretty damn good too. And I love at the end when He-Man says, "I have the power." The only thing I hate about this film, the only little thing I problem I hate about this film is that in this film, the plot of this film, in the story of this film, um, um, Julie's parents are dead in this film, died in a car crash before the film even started, and before the film even started, and she at the end of the film, Wildor, when he uses the cosmic key to send them back home, they go back in time to before her parents got on the plane, and so her parents are alive. That part I hated right there because that teaches kids that you can get your parents back. You don't have to deal with the harshness of reality with death. But it also teaches a lesson that if you to cherish your family because they can be taken from you at any time. But still, I just hate the fact that her family was alive at the end because of the indirect message it gives to kids who were watching this film. But other than that, this film was awesome. I love the scene at the end where Skeletor is shown alive again, and of course the story was pretty good. I actually prefer, as much as I love the '80s cartoon, I actually prefer story-wise. I actually prefer this film a little bit more. I actually thought this film story-wise was much better. See, one problem I have with the '80s cartoon is that in the '80s cartoon, since that cartoon was mostly marketed to sell the storyline was pretty good, but the storyline was all over the place. The storyline was all over the place. The storyline was all over the place. This story was more consistent. So were the following series, the '90s animated series and the 2002 animated series, and that I like. So this right here was an awesome underrated film, and I just think this film is way better than when people give it credit for. And I was really happy to sit here and talk about this film again. I'm going to be talking about this film more in the future on my other channel. All right, Doug out.